Hello, Libras. Welcome to your reading for the week of December 30th. And I don't know if you know, but I always start with my guides and let them direct the cards and fill out the image. So the image that I had of you was of you standing on a high diving board. There was no obvious pool, however, and you were so high up on this diving board that you were above the tree line. Like literally, you could see the treetops. And you're standing on this diving board and you're looking out, and there is real panic in your chest about jumping off. And there's that fear that if you do jump off, you're going to go, as my grandmother would say, ass over tea kettle. Like everything is just going to be bouleversé and totally crazy. And what the guides are showing me is that once you actually jump off, you don't just plummet. You literally take off and you fly. And as you take off and you fly, you're learning how to navigate the currents. Now, it's not that it's always smooth, but what I'm being shown is you actually have very, very strong wings, and you have a very, very expansive wingspan, and you have the ability to really okay, you'll get into a current that throws you off a bit, but you'll self-correct very quickly. So this is what Spirit wants you to know you have available to you. Keep in mind, the air is emotion, but I also want to say in this case, there is Spirit that is guiding you, and you are being reminded of that because, Libras, sometimes you have difficulty trusting in something you can't see. You have difficulty trusting in things you can see. Now, I don't know who I'm reading for. Of course, this is for the collective, so it's not going to necessarily resonate with everybody. But what I'm seeing within this, as I put it together with the image, is that I feel as though there is a section of the Libra collective who is still dealing with what I would say a lack of maternal support. And it may not be maternal, it may be paternal, but what I'm feeling is there was not the softness, there was not the tenderness to support Libra in their development of their sensitivities. Because Libras, you are sensitive, you are very empathic. But what happens is because you can be so empathic and so sensitive, wanting so much for everything to stay in balance, that you sometimes become very cut off from your feelings and will instead rely upon functionality, getting things done, taking care of detail. That's much more comfortable. It's almost starting to sound like a Virgo reading, but it's not, because it's done very differently. This is, for me, when I look at this, what I see is that there is very often struggle coming with you, Libra, that comes from a sense of not feeling like you belong, almost not knowing where you belong. And so it feels as though there's always this struggle within yourself to figure out what it is that makes you different, that what it is that makes you not fit. Well, my loves, part of it might go back to your childhood, but what Spirit and I would really like to tell you is that you have the ability to change that sense of belonging, and you have the ability to let go of the grief of not belonging by choosing to belong. This is the thing that came to mind as I was getting ready and as I was playing this out. What I would really like to offer you is an exercise that I did for myself at one point that changed everything for me. I said to myself, what would I like to have heard in the mornings growing up? And for 40 days, I chose to get up every morning and say, what would I like to have heard today? So of course, 40 days, very different. If I was going to something that was challenging, I might have wanted to hear, you can do it, Linny. Of course you can do it. You don't have to worry about that. Other days it would be, geez, you're looking lovely today. Yeah, don't worry about that. Nobody's going to notice. It might be, you know what? Don't let those people get you down. They just don't understand you. And sometimes I would write for an entire page and I would be shocked at what would come up that I didn't know I was missing that I'd wanted. And different scenarios would come up in which I got to repeat to myself the things that would have allowed me to feel safer, better about myself, happier to be alive when I was a kid. I am encouraging this for you. Now, I am also wanting to say this to you. My part of what was going on for me that made that relevant and important and necessary was that my mom was very sick. It wasn't that she didn't want to be there. She just couldn't be there in the same way that maybe other kids' moms were. She was sleeping. Of course she was sleeping. She was sick. She was in pain. She was sleeping. I was getting my own breakfast. I was starting my day on my own. These things, at the time, they're not painful, but they can undermine a sense of being seen, belonging. Now, that's benevolent, right? That was not any kind of intentional hurt. That was not deliberate ignoring. That was just circumstance. But that still created a sense of insecurity for me that I got to address myself by saying those things to me. And when I did, that little kid in me cried and laughed and understood how profound that experience in my life was and how much it affected me, but also how I could change it for myself. Libra, you are very, very good at putting yourselves down for not being better, at wondering what you've done wrong, at trying to figure out why everything played out the way it did. That's not a bad thing, except when you're coming at it from a place of self-blame and self-recrimination, you're not coming at it with a clear lens. You're presupposing your guilt. You're presupposing your own blame. So what I would ask for you is this. Instead of thinking whether or not you deserve what you would like, let yourself dream what you would like. In Technicolor, dream big. Dreaming is your soul speaking to you. So let it speak to you. What would you love? And if you don't know, I suggest starting with that exercise. You may not want to do it 40 times. You may not want to do it for 40 days. But if you can do it, even if you don't write, sit quietly and say, what would I like to have heard today? What would I like to have heard growing up? And maybe it's from somebody in your life now, too. You can play with that too. Experiment with it. But that is a beautiful experiment. And watch your words, please. I'm going to read this one to you. You're on a word fast. Today, make the agreement that just for this day, half day, hour, week, to refrain from using these words in thought or speech. Can't, should, if only, impossible, but, however, limitation, try, doubt, ought to, difficult, stretch. And any words that put you or anyone else in a category, words that measure or evaluate, good or bad, words that judge, label, condemn, or criticize. Okay? There's your word fast. So keep a sense of humor about yourself, Libra. Don't take yourself so seriously. You guys can be so straight when it comes to trying to do things right and to the point sometimes where it's almost like you're paralyzed and you don't know what to say and you don't know what to think. Lighten up, have some humor, see yourself. When you do get into your humor, you're hysterical. So let yourself do that. Let yourself dream. Let yourself get into play. Be spontaneous. Lighten up. Watch your words, especially in relation to yourself, okay? Please watch your words. And I would really encourage you to go back to that childhood place and say, what would I like to have heard when I was that age, when I was going to school, when I was going for a job interview, when I had my first heartbreak? What would I have liked to have heard from the people in my life or from God? Because the thing is, how can you trust that God's going to be there until you're there for yourself, until you start feeling that sense of support? That's what I feel like, is that this is you developing your own sense of support that perhaps you didn't have when you were a kid. And once you have that, then you can start opening more to the idea that, yeah, you really can trust in something bigger than your family. You know, if our family, I've heard it often said that our family is the microcosm through which we judge God or the divine in our life. So if we haven't felt supported, sometimes it's very hard to imagine that there is a divine energy supporting us too. So check in with that, Libra. I think this is really worthwhile for you and really good. And remember, the image of you jumping off that diving board, you've got the wind, you've got spirit, you've got the wings, you've got the strength. Okay? Take care. Have a great week. If you care to like, share, subscribe, all of it's very much appreciated. Have a great week, and I'll be back next week.